Hello, everyone. I'm Joel Denver, and on behalf of my partner, Seth Ressler, we both welcome you to Radio Rendezvous for February 13th, and our very special guest is a dear friend of mine, Country Radio Seminar EVP R.J. Curtis. Radio Rendezvous is brought to you by Key Networks, Sun and Fun Media, Radio.Cloud, RCS, The Imaging House, and supported by our media partners at RAMP. Thank you, guys. Well, first of all, RJ, how are you?
I'm great. I just want to say thanks for having me at the Radio Rendezvous. I was at, I think, your first one recently, and I think it's a great idea, great way to network and see each other virtually, and I had a lot of fun. So I hope everybody that sees this tells their friends in radio and comes to the next one and all the ones that you're planning, Joel.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your support, RJ. So first of all, tell us about your radio career, your label career, your time at All Access, and explain your role at CRS.
Well, I'll try and keep my radio career for the thumbnail because it was a 30-year career. But I wanted to be in radio since I was a little kid. Like a lot of people in my generation of radio, we were inspired by the great stations that we heard growing up. In my case, it was KHJ in Los Angeles, and then KMET and KLOS. In particular, KMET was my inspiration for radio. But I started in San Bernardino at a small station, and got an incredible opportunity in 1980 when KZLA flipped to country. I spent 7 years there in many different roles. From there, went to KNIX in Phoenix, back to KZLA, then to San Antonio, then back to KZLA. So 3 tours of duty at KZLA until they flipped the format. Emmis did that in 2006. Then segued to Radio and Records. Then I went to the label side, as you mentioned a minute ago, worked for Arista Records for about 18 months and got the chance to work with Brad Paisley and Carrie Underwood and Brooks and Dunn and Alan Jackson and, just all sorts of great artists. But I missed the trade publication world. So I went to work for Country Air Check. And in the middle of that 3-year run, I was contacted by some guy named Joel Denver. And he said, "Do you want to work at All Access?" And I, of course, took that opportunity, and it was a wonderful 6-year run at All Access. In 2018, I took on the role at CRS as executive director. I was a longtime board member and a past president of the organization, and I segued into the leadership role there. And it's been going really great. And it's a job that I love. I'm the executive director. We are a board-driven organization. We have 30 board members. We're a nonprofit 501c3. And we have 5 total members of our staff. That includes me. When you come to CRS, it looks like we have an army of people. We expand into contractors and vendors and volunteers and interns and so forth. But really, it's the 5 of us, the core staff that put that event together. And I'm representing the organization and liaison with the industry, radio, records, publishing, the whole music ecosystem in Nashville and beyond. And that's hopefully a short explanation that makes some sense for you about my past, present, and CRS world.
There you go. One of the worst days of my life at All Access is when you resigned. I thought you were going to be a lifer with me.
I know. I had every intention. Yeah.
There you go. He was terrific to work with, folks. So as one of the last of the big conventions, how do you keep that momentum going in the face of rising travel and hotel prices?
Boy, it is getting harder and harder, Joel. That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked it because I think the rising travel and hotel prices is the thing that challenges our attendance every year. In the past, and this is radio and another generation really, companies would pay for program directors, music directors, general managers, promotion people, sometimes air talent to come to CRS. And in most cases, that's not happening now. Fortunately, we still have some attendees whose companies pay for all of their travel, the registration, and so forth. But a lot of times now, a lot of our attendees pay their own way to CRS. And I feel like I wish their companies would pay their travel and so forth. But I feel like the people that are paying their own way to CRS are making a really strong investment in their career because CRS offers so many things, the networking, the music discovery, the educational programs that we have. And I feel like it's an investment because you got to fly, you got a hotel room, and then of course registration. But it's really putting money down on your career to advance yourself and learn more about the greater world out there than just your radio station.
Yeah, I agree that, investing in your future and investing in your career, that's something you either feel you can do, and if you can't do it, you somehow try and do it, because if you don't see this as a dead end business, and you want to continue on in this business, that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to get better at what you do every day. So let me ask you this. Regardless of a job, or where you're working, what keeps you up at night?
Boy, right, you're asking that question at a really bad time because we're just on the doorsteps of when CRS starts. So basically, everything's keeping me up at night. So the planning of the event and the execution and all the details that go into CRS. But I think you're talking about the broader picture. A lot of what I just said about the ability for the sustainability of the event for people to show up. Who are the people that are coming to CRS? Because we know that personnel at a radio station, that number is shrinking all the time. There's fewer decision makers in radio. So, can program directors who, in many cases, don't have a say in what the music is going to be and other things, it's, coming from corporate, there's fewer of them coming to CRS. The industry, just the state of radio. I think you and I are believers in radio, and I always will be. And that's because of the way we got into radio and the days that we spent in it. It's exciting. It's a wonderful, wonderful business. But it's fragile right now. In fact, and I say this as a believer in radio. Okay. But someone that I was talking to on the phone yesterday, we were talking about radio and lamenting so many challenges that it has that we all know. And they said radio isn't dead, but it's in a zombie state right now. And I agree with it, but it's hard to acknowledge that. So the business is very challenged with limited resources, no marketing, talent in the building. You go to some stations that's a cluster. There's a handful of people day to day on the regular at the station. I think that's going to be really challenging for the business to create something that's compelling that can drive listeners and make them really interested in that medium.
I agree 100%. So, what does country as a community, or rather, I should say, why does country as a community still place so much value on radio compared to other formats?
Well, that's a conversation I just had this morning with one of the label heads. It's going to be on a session at CRS, and I won't say who, but they were talking about, of course, streaming is playing a bigger part, and we've seen labels pivot their resources more to their streaming teams and back away a little bit from radio. And the admission was, yeah, we start records, we start music on the streaming side, and then we take it to radio. But country is unique, and this exec acknowledged it in a big way, that country radio still is a very important piece of developing an artist and creating a bigger business for them and developing careers. Okay. And I think that's because this symbiotic relationship that exists in our world with radio and the labels, and even, of course, the streaming partners are very good partners and with the labels and working together with them. I feel like, and this is a very important part of CRS and why I think it's been so sustainable over the years, is the country community seems to really work together and communicate and share ideas back and forth. And the purpose of that is so that everyone can achieve success. They're always working for the greater good of the music. Now, I'm not saying pop and rock don't do that, but there is a genuine community. CRS is a very unique event. It's the only format specific event, and we're all there together. And I think everybody is there to make sure that the genre grows and is relatable and important and continues to engage listeners.
Yeah, I've never ceased to fail to amaze me how at all the award shows, the first thing artists do when they get an award is like, I want to thank radio. Radio, thank you so much, and on and on and on. I just love that because they know where some of that big success comes from. And despite streaming and all the other things that go on out there, radio is a still incredibly important part of that process and success.
Well, 100%. I mean, radio is, this is not me saying this, but I agree with it. Someone else said to me that radio is the original street team for the music and the artist. Radio can get behind an artist and be that artist fan, cheerleader, advocate, and really build their career. The artists can come into a market, play it as a new artist, start in the conference room, and then you're doing a small club, a free show, and then it builds, and one day they're playing an arena. I've seen that so many times, and that's because radio wants to align itself with these artists and have this ongoing relationship with them. And I think that's the power of country radio. We do that in a great way, and I think it's unique.
RJ, tell us about your team and the close working relationships that you have with music and labels and artists and their managers.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we have a really tight unit at CRS. We have, like I said, 5 of us do this year round. We're full-time employees. And, you know, I've been involved with CRS since 1999, first as a board member, and then since 2018 as executive director. But my team, Chastity Crouch is our business manager, and she's been with CRS for 25 years now. Cherie Latham handles all of our agenda content, 26 years. Ashley Burke is our project manager, 13 years. And Brooke Sanders Gorley is head of sponsorship, brand partnerships, and so forth. 10th year at Sierra. So that's a lot of combined experience. Yeah. And like, I'm the rookie on the team, really, in terms of staff. This is my 7th CRS. They all have more experience. And I feel like it's a very tight unit. We work well together. The word we use a lot is collaboration. And as it relates to the labels, artists, and managers, I think the word collaboration is a good one to use with them. Yeah. We can't help those guys with airplay or spins or conversions or all those sorts of things. So we need favors and help from everybody. Everybody is our partner. And I think one of the reasons that I am such a good fit for this role, and was when I was brought into it in the role of executive directors, is the long-term relationships that I've had over the years with all these different parts of the business. And we rely on the music labels. They're our biggest partner at CRS. The artists are participating this year at CRS. You know, we've got the major artists performing and participating in a non-performing role, with like Jelly Roll and Eric Church are doing a conversation together. And Old Dominion is going to be an artist interview. And we have 3 new artists are doing an event called Cycle of a Song, where they take a song and they break it down from the inception of the song to the success of it on streaming and radio. So we rely on all those folks for content, and those relationships are so important to us. And I'm really proud of those relationships that we already had and that we fostered since coming on board as the executive director in 2018.
That's a great story. It really is, RJ. So when you came aboard 7 years ago and now you're into your 7th year, what kind of content do you not do anymore at CRS? Pardon the dog barking.
Yeah, that's fine. Somebody's at the door, Joel. You better get
yeah,
that.
exactly. So what is it, you would do 7 years ago that you no longer do today at CRS?
Well, in terms of content, I mean, just, this is kind of a small thing, but execution of the event. And we're very digital. Like back in the day, even when I took over in 2019 was my first CRS, and we were still had a paper agenda guide that we passed out, right. And now it's all in the app. So a lot of things that we do are done digitally. We have a lot more video content. I feel like CRS is a much better produced event. All of our attendees are content creators, really. They're radio and streaming, and they're content creators, right. And I think they expect to see that. So I think we're doing a much better job of that. So just some of the basic execution of the event. Events at CRS sort of, they cycle through. They have a lifespan of whatever it is. We've done in the last 4 or 5 years. It's not really anything that is educational or musical, but it's just a night to blow off steam and have a good time. And I think that's important at CRS too, is our ping pong tournament, Paddle Royale. And that's, we have artists, a bracket of artists and a bracket of radio people. And then at the end of the night, our artist is going to play a radio person for the, ridiculously large and ugly trophy that is up for grabs at the end of the night. But I think in the last few years, what we haven't done in terms of innovation, not just the digital presentation and production value of the event, is we've gotten the artists involved in some of those non-musical roles. They've been on panels. We've done a lot of artist interviews. And I think that's really a good peek behind the curtain of how an artist got started, what they're thinking, what are their priorities in their career. And even we've innovated that in the last couple of years. And I've alluded to it earlier in this conversation, but we are starting to do more artist on artist conversations. And like I said earlier, Eric Church is going to interview Jelly Roll. And, I feel like that's a great opportunity for our attendees to see two artists talking the same language and just to be a fly on the wall in that room. Because, like, wouldn't you or any of your friends, Joel, wouldn't you want to be in the room, like in the dressing room before a show?
Oh, yeah.
Listening to and you've been in these conversations. So, what I'm saying?
Right.
You want to sit back and like watch those two guys just, shooting the shit, talking about things that they can relate to. I think those are fascinating conversations. So that's one way that we've developed the artist participation there. And I hope we can do more of that in the years to come.
I think that's fascinating to watch two artists that are very successful, share what's in their heads and share what their prep versions are and how they go through their lives and their routines and how they're part of the creative process. I think that's fascinating stuff. I think everybody can learn from a conversation like that.
Well, I just want to add too that the other dynamic that's interesting is in the case of Jelly Roll and Eric Church. When we asked Jelly to do that, he was like, I'm doing that. I'm all in, because Eric Church is a very influential and important person in the musical history of Jelly Roll, going back to when he was a kid. Right. And his history, which is also interesting. So, when you get two big stars together and then one of them reveals that other person is their idol and someone they looked up to, I think that's really cool to see.
That's cool. That is very cool. So you're at the top of this whole thing. You have a big, huge macro view, of the entire industry. What trends are you spotting in country music now?
Well, obviously, there's been a big influence from the pop side. Post Malone and some other folks coming in and doing a lot of collabs. And I think the pop influence, the collaborations are a big part. In fact, our research project this year is going to take a look at, do core country listeners or country fans, are they okay with all this pop influence? Because, country music over the years is one of the most self-aware and angst-ridden group of people who make this, that we've always been like worried about like what we are and what country music is, and are we doing it right? Is it too much, too pop, too country? That was a session at CRS and a conversation in our format for many years. So we're going to take a look at that, but that's definitely happening in country. All the collaborations right now. I think that's something kind of new. And also I feel like there are other artists who don't get played on country radio, but are doing amazing things out there. And Zach Bryan, Zach Bryan is not really a guy who's played a lot on country radio, if at all, but he's selling out arenas and stadiums. Okay.
Why is that?
Because the music is exposed in other ways. And this guy is making songs and stories that are relatable to people who may not use country radio, or they're just fans of music and they like what they like. And I think he's relatable. I mean, and I've seen him in concert a couple times and I get it. And Tyler Childers is another one. I mean, this guy's selling out arenas and yet he's nowhere to be found on a radio station playlist. And you can argue the good and the bad of that, or if that's a smart thing or not for radio, but it's amazing to see there are other avenues for artists to make connections with listeners and monetize that in a major, major way. And I think that's really interesting when you see those things happen and they're not in the Nashville ecosystem, nor do they want to be, by the way.
Interesting. Yeah. So speaking of new artists and such, name some of your favorite up and coming bands and artists.
Yeah, I'm excited about, and these are kind of mainstream acts. Obviously, I love Zach Bryan. I mean, I think he's just incredible. And Tyler Childers is a very interesting artist, But on the mainstream side, I think Ella Langley can be a superstar. I think she's just incredible. There's a band called Muscadine Bloodline, and I don't know where they fit in the pantheon of all this, but I like their music a lot. It's really, really good. And again, on the mainstream side, another female artist, and we certainly need to develop more female artists in country radio and country music, Megan Moroney. She was the ACM top new female vocalist last year. And I think what she brings is a look a defined look that's very traditional in her dress and her hair and just the way she presents herself. But she also brings a very clever lyrical content, turning a phrase that's been sort of the hallmark of country music over the years. It's clever, it's vulnerable. Most of her songs are about failed relationships, and they're kind of whimsical in some way. I really like what she's doing. I'm excited about those three in particular. There's a lot more, but those three come to mind.
Yeah, those are good ones. Those are good choices, RJ. One final question. With all the layoffs in radio and loss of opportunities and work and stuff like that, how does that impact your particular vision for the future of radio?
Well, I think I'm a big believer in radio, always
Me
will
too.
be. But I just look at what's going on, with the way that these companies are operated and the reductions in force. Uh, I it's fraught. It's fraught. When you go to stations, like I said earlier, there's just several people working there, and there's 4 stations in the
Right.
building. I think what that compromises is several things. It compromises is manpower to get out in the
Yeah.
streets and just be present. There's a lack of marketing resources. There's a lack of research resources. Um, and on the talent side, I don't think we're developing or encouraging talent. And I feel like these are all the superpowers that radio has had for all these years, and they're just being taken away. And I worry that radio becomes just a utility. Like when I need light in the room I'm sitting in, I flip a switch and the light fills
Right.
the room, but I'm not
Right.
fascinated with the lamp. It doesn't excite me. I'm not like going,
Right.
wow. And it doesn't make me laugh or cry or feel anything. It just makes me see what's happening in the room. I don't want radio to become a utility where it's just, I need some sound to fill my car or the room I'm in. So I'll turn on that switch and I have no affinity to it. I'm not part of the tribe. Radio station was always good at branding itself, promoting
Hmm.
itself, and developing these core listeners who have just this loyalty, like I did when I was growing up listening to KMET. I was a big fan of that station. I listened to it all the time. I knew all the personalities. I felt like I knew them. I think we're losing that, and I hate to see that. So I don't know how we reverse that, Joel, but I feel like, particularly on the talent side, we have an opportunity, and I don't want to see us let that go because radio can do a great job of entertaining people and serving their community. I hate to see us lose that.
Me too, man. Me too. I'm hopeful that the 3 minute rule for Nielsen will help radio stations, and all boats will rise on that, and that will get advertisers and marketers' attentions that this is a place that still has a lot of available ears and influenceable people to sample their products. So that's my hope. So
Yeah, and I just want to say this. I think some people, cynics, say that Nielsen changing that 3 minute from five moves the goalposts. To me, I think it reflects the way people use radio. I think
I agree.
it's probably a more accurate way to measure what's really happening out there. And
I
I'm a
agree.
little out of school on that, but that's just my initial feeling about that.
Totally agree with you on that. I really am. I'm a big believer in radio, and I'm really hoping that this new rule change makes a big impact, that all boats do rise from it. So, well, that's putting a bow on this one. A big thanks to our guest, country radio seminar big shot R.J. Curtis, for his time and thoughts on
Wow.
his well attended event, and he'll be our guest host for Radio Rendezvous on February 13th. We hope to see you there.